Harold Allen Jr. loved his wife and stepdaughter, but what he didn't know was that every meal, every drink was part of a slow, calculated plan to kill him. A plan so cold, so deliberate. It involved deadly poisons, chilling text messages, and a web of lies that would only unravel after his death. This is the story of Harold Allen Jr. and how his perpetrators almost got away with murder. And if you're new here, welcome to Shall We Brew. I'm your host, Haley, and here we talk about true crime, bizarre stories, and shocking scandals while honoring the voices of victims. Also, just a quick heads up, this episode involves some heavy topics, including self-exiting. If that's something you'd rather skip, no worries. I'll see you in the next one. And as a reminder, this case is still currently awaiting trial, so you're innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. So everything stated in this episode is alleged. This case, there's a lot of conflicting statements. There is an affidavit, so there's a lot of articles referring to the affidavit. All of those details are just very confusing. So keep that in mind. Now, with that being said, pour yourself a cup and settle in, because once we start brewing, the truth can't be unsipped. Harold Allen Jr., also known as Peanut. I imagine it came as a nickname since he's the second born. His family writes, in 1989, he went on to study electrical engineering at ITT Technical Institute and Ivy Tech. His love for technology and programming was shown daily in his career at ASIN USA and his countless hours playing video games. Throughout his life, Harold enjoyed playing music on his mandolin, riding his Harley Davidson, and enjoying time with his family and friends. Peanut was usually over the line, unapologetic, always made sure you got his jokes, couldn't cook without garlic powder. He was a beautiful musician, a talented singer, and loved with his entire being. Harold was married to Marcia Allen, and it said that he loved her very dearly. He thought he was marrying the woman he would spend forever with. Harold was the provider for Marcia and his stepdaughter, Ashley Jones. It's reported that Ashley lived with Harold and Marcia for a period of time before his death. Harold was now facing a sudden decline with his health. On November 27th, 2022, he found himself in the ER. He was complaining of symptoms with numbness on the left side of his face. Despite his concerns, Harold was sent home really without any answers. And then just 3 days later, on November 30th, Harold returned to the ER. This time, he experienced not only facial numbness, but also fever, nausea, vomiting, and abdominal pain. Doctors end up diagnosing him with an inflammatory intestine-related condition, and they send him home again. But what Harold didn't know was that his condition wasn't just a cruel twist of fate. He had no idea why he was getting sick. Before the hospital visits, he had enjoyed a brownie prepared by his wife, Marcia. And those brownies contained something more than just chocolate. Pong seeds. A deadly toxin had been mixed into the batter. So, if we go back, this whole story starts with Ashley, the stepdaughter, Marcia's daughter, ordering pong seeds on September 14th, 2022. The seeds are delivered to the Allens' home in October. Then Marcia grinds them up in a coffee grinder, bakes this batch of brownies, and is like, Harold, do you want some brownies? And he's just like, yeah, sure. I would love one. Then Marcia sends a photo to Ashley with what appears to be a half-eaten brownie on a paper plate sitting on Harold's stomach. The very next day, on November 27th is when Harold ends up in the ER with numbness on the left side of his face. And these are symptoms that could be linked to pong pong seed poisoning. So let's get into all the symptoms of pong pong seed poisoning. They are severely toxic, and ingesting them can cause severe abdominal pain, vomiting, and potentially fatal heart and respiratory complications. The seeds interfere with a body's ability to pump blood, which leads to organ failure. Pong pong seeds come from the Cerebera odolum tree, also known as the suicide tree. This tropical tree is native to India and Southeast Asia, often growing in coastal swamps and marshy areas. The seeds themselves are about the size of a walnut, with a hard, fibrous shell and a smooth, round surface that can vary in color from light brown to dark brown, depending on how mature or dried they are. While the tree produces green, mango-like fruit, it's the seeds inside that are fatally toxic. They contain a potent poison called cerberin, which disrupts the heart's electrical system, leading to irregular heartbeats, cardiac arrest, and death. What makes cerberin especially dangerous is it's nearly undetectable in autopsies, often mimicking symptoms of a natural heart attack or stroke. In some regions, the tree is nicknamed murder tree because its seeds have been historically used in homicides, often under the guise of food or drink. Despite their sinister reputation, the seeds are relatively easy to purchase online, which makes accessibility all the more alarming. On November 28th, Marcia would text Ashley, "I'm irritated and can't sleep. I need this to be over. I wish it would just reach its climax and be done. LOL." Ashley responds, "Agreed." On December 1st, Ashley proceeds to order water hemlock. Water hemlock is the most violently toxic plant that is grown in North America. Only a small amount is needed to be lethal, which is very terrifying to think about. The toxin, toxin, acts directly on the central nervous system, and it is a violent convulsant, meaning seizures. Toxin is a highly poisonous unsaturated alcohol that has a strong carrot-like odor. It is found mainly in the tubers, but is also present in the leaves and stem during early growth. Leaves and stems lose most of their toxicity as they mature. However, green seed heads are poisonous. The signs of poisoning occur when a threshold dose is reached, after which grand mal seizures and death occur. One article reads, "This poisoning can cause your breathing muscles to fail. Then when those muscles fail, you can go into respiratory failure and just eventually die." The water hemlock is delivered to the residence just 7 days later. Then, 2 days later, on December 9th, Marcia places it in Harold's chili. And then the next day into a soda. And then the next day into a margarita. And she's so determined to make this happen. It's incredibly sad for Harold and his family. I can't imagine. He just gets home from work after a long day and he's thinking his wife is making dinner and drinks for him, just being nice, not knowing that each time he's probably slowly dying. I can't imagine all these toxic plants just not slowly hurting his body. The water hemlock, it's not working. So now they need to come up with another plan. And this is when Marcia starts Googling, what happens if you ingest foxglove seed? How much foxglove is fatal? How long does foxglove take to kill you? Then she says to Ashley, "I need foxglove seeds." And Ashley is telling her mother, "They're traceable and you need gloves." And Marcia is just like, I know, I just need time alone to prepare it. But then they decide to just scratch that idea. And just to give you an idea, all parts of foxglove plant are poisonous. Even inhaling the pollen can cause adverse reactions. The leaves have fine hairs that can cause a rash that can last anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks. Within hours of ingestion, toxicity begins with vomiting, cardiac arrhythmia, and hyperkalemia. On December 13th, Ashley orders ethylene glycol. And just 6 days later, Ashley would text her mother, "The mail is here," smiley face. Marcia just responds with a heart emoji. And then later on, Ashley texts her mother, "He's all in for root beer floats." Ethylene glycol ingestion exposure happens in stages. There are mild stages and there are severe stages. But for this case, we're sticking to the severe stages. So stage 1, decreased reflex responses, seizures, loss of consciousness, and coma. Stage 2, more severe buildup of toxic breakdown products in the bloodstream, resulting in increased heart rate and depth of breathing, heart damage, including congestive heart failure, which results in buildup of fluid in the lungs, pulmonary edema. Lung damage, including adult respiratory distress syndrome, which then results in decreased oxygen supply to the body. And then it's just a multi-system organ failure. And then it ultimately starts leading to death. Stage 3, reduced and or absence of urine excretion, acute kidney failure, causing a buildup of toxic chemicals and chemical imbalances in the bloodstream, ultimately leading to death. It's unclear exactly what time, but sometime between December 19th and 20th, Harold drank the root beer float laced with ethylene glycol. Ashley texted Marcia confirming that Harold had consumed the entire float. The morning of December 20th, Marcia texted Ashley at 7:55 a.m. "Come here." When questioned later on, Ashley claimed that Marcia was referring to Harold just acting drunk and loopy. 5 hours later, Marcia called an ambulance, but by then, Harold was already dead. At the time, authorities had no suspicion of foul play, but everything changed 9 months later. On September 19th, 2023, Marcia called the police reporting a burglary at her home. 2 men were identified as suspects, and one of them, Stephen White. Stephen then revealed to authorities that Ashley had recruited him to do the robbery, like the break-in of Marcia's home. And then he tells them that Ashley and Marcia had murdered Harold by poisoning him. And luckily, the police took this claim very serious and started looking into it. Because the next day, they speak with Marcia. And Marcia denies any involvement in Harold's death, but she consents to a download off her phone, which I'm sure during questioning, she was trying to appear like forthcoming as if she didn't have anything to hide. So she deletes everything off her phone, thinking the police won't have access to it. But the police can tell when you've unlocked your phone. The digital footprint is insane, and you really cannot hide anything. So what the police end up finding were incriminating messages between Marcia and Ashley detailing their plan to carry out the murder. Then on October 16th, 2023, a call is made around 7:52 p.m. by Marcia's family stating they're unable to make any contact with Marcia. Once police arrived, it was determined that Marcia was found deceased by self-exiting. No further details have really been mentioned about her death. How did Ashley find 2 men just willingly to help rob her mother's home? It turns out that Stephen White is the nephew of Ashley's late husband, Tyrson Jones. Back in 2019, Tyrson was found dead in his home just days after receiving an inheritance. Ashley told his family that he died of alcohol poisoning, and allegedly no autopsy was performed, and she quickly had him cremated. And then her involvement in both her husband and stepfather's deaths become more suspicious. Detectives uncovered more incriminating messages from Ashley to Stephen, bragging about how she planned everything and how Marcia couldn't have pulled it off without her. What gets me is she thinks she's a know-it-all and she's so smart. But in reality, she was so not smart. So I'm going to read you these messages, but bear with me. These messages are word for word from Ashley, and the grammar, as you can imagine, it's not great. Ah ha ha ha, yeah. She ain't gonna be able to do shit. She wouldn't even have succeeded with the last thing without me. I planned it all. She was gonna use insulin like 1983. Oh, it's not traced. Yeah, not usually and not years ago, but 2022, yeah, it is. And he was diabetic. Like, come on. So something else was hatched, and we both know that wasn't going to be the one planning. She just fucked it all up, made it less lucrative, wouldn't even make it go get a will. She's referring to Harold as it. She couldn't get into a dead man's phone without me to get all his retirements and savings he had hidden. Hell, she got $4,500 from his PayPal because I showed her how to scam it as him before they find he's gone. She's fake as f. She didn't give me shit out of that. So Ashley was later arrested in October and charged with burglary, murder, consumer product tampering, murder attempted, conspiracy. I actually worked on this case a few months ago, and Ashley's trial was set to start January 7th, 2025. But as I was looking for updates, it now says canceled, and it looks like it'll start in August 4th, 2025. Okay, so now let's talk about speculation and theories. This is pure speculation, but Ashley could have something to do with Marcia's death. On one hand, I think it's easy to see maybe Marcia did actually self-exit because it doesn't seem like she wanted to deal with the repercussions of her murdering her husband. But also, on the other hand, you could see how Ashley, in those text messages, was angry at her mother. She didn't get any money. Her mother only got $4,500, allegedly. And it was all her plan. It was all her idea. And they wanted to get this big life insurance payout. So, and seeing how she has total disregard for life with her stepfather, and her late husband's death was very suspicious, which is also not for certain. But I'm really hoping this information comes out with her court case, because it seems like her biggest motive is money and she's willing to kill for it. So, yeah. Anyways, I don't think it's too far-fetched that Ashley could be a part of her mother's death as well, just given the fact that she was so callous about Harold's death, and money seems to be a big factor in a lot of crimes. But like I said, this is just pure speculation and nothing has been proven yet. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. And I did want to add, when I was looking up Ashley's case, there were also quite a few eviction notices, and it looked like one was around 2022. So just to keep that by your head, just a side note, this case is nothing short of heartbreaking. Harold Allen Jr. was a man who loved deeply and trusted fully, only to be betrayed in the most horrific way by people he cared about. I don't have a ton of information about him, but from what I can find, he seems very genuine and very down to earth. And if you just look at his picture, he looks so innocent, which I know you can't judge a book by its cover. Thank you all for joining me on today's episode. If you like this story, be sure to subscribe, like, comment, leave a review, and share with your friends. Let me know in the comments, what case would you like to see next? I will love some suggestions. But as always, stay safe, stay curious, and I'll see you next week.